Welcome, everyone, to the Omniverse of Nick, and part one of two to my next story. What if Gordon Ramsay was Negan's cook? Now, this one's going to be a two-parter and a very hilarious and interesting tale. So, hope you guys will definitely enjoy this two-part story. But like always, before we get into today's episode, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the Omniverse of Nick channel, and further acknowledge the Omniverse of Nick by commenting future expectations and what if ideas in the comment section, as well as supporting the Discord, Patreon, and checking out the Google Doc, all linked on my homepage. So, with all that said, let's get into today's tale. So, the story is, what if Gordon Ramsay was Negan's cook? As I said, this is going to be a two-parter, and I'm sure you guys, from the prospect alone of fans of like Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay, The Walking Dead, and Negan's character, you guys can probably tell right away that this is going to be almost solely for comedy more than how Gordon's actually involved in The Walking Dead. But trust me, by the end of the story especially, you'll understand that Gordon actually plays a crucial role in being Negan's cook and coming across the Walking Dead cast in the first place. So, yeah. Right away, I just want to touch upon the fact that if you really look at it from a realistic sense, Gordon Ramsay and Negan would absolutely not tolerate each other. And honestly, I thought at first about one of two things. Either one, making that happen and just saying like they would just both kill each other or something like that, or one would kill the other, or like Negan would kill Gordon for his attitude because he would have Lucille, or number two, they would get as far as the sanctuary and then Gordon would just like poison his food or something. But I did not want to go about it like that, since the idea to me was so freaking funny and unique that if I had done one or both of those ideas, this wouldn't have made it into a two-parter, and I wouldn't have had fun diving into the hilarious interactions and stuff between these two characters. Because especially if you people have seen the movie Rampage, where Dwayne Johnson starred with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, it was basically like, what if The Rock met Negan? So it just made me think more and more about doing this. So here we finally are after a good long wait for this story. So let's dive in. We open up at a very deserted, rundown, damaged, and completely empty kitchen. This kitchen, mind you, is Gordon Ramsay's own kitchen. But sadly, he's all alone. No family, no kids, nothing. He doesn't have anything because his family was lost to him at the beginning of the apocalypse. So he has been sitting in this kitchen for God knows how long since this started, surviving on his own barely and making what he does best. He cooks to keep himself alive with whatever he can find. And since he's a master chef, that would not be hard, literally. So, but the cooking just gives him a further reminder of the life that he once had. And it honestly leads him into a deep depression. And one day he thinks about just ending it, when all of a sudden, at his door, he hears 3 taps on his door. And a man from outside shouting, little pig, let me in." And I think that that would be a great way to introduce Negan, if you guys remember him doing that at Alexandria. And I hope you guys like the picture also. It's very freaking funny and cool that that would be his introduction, because he knows someone has to be in there. And soon enough, Negan and his men just let their way in. Gordon Ramsay instantly yells at this person, calling him a broccoli boiled wanker and telling him to get the F out, except it wouldn't be F, we would obviously be cussing. But Negan is just very, very surprised, for one thing, that someone's actually in here, and number two, that he just straight up insulted Negan to his face. And it was not a bad insult either. Negan has to give him credit and asks him, since you're all on your own here, Mr. Potty Mouth, why don't you join me and my men here? Seems like you could do with a home, since this home's basically like a rat's nest. But Gordon Ramsay just gets straight up in Negan's face and tells him he's not buying what he's selling, and he can take his leather jacket, his barbed wire bat, and his little minions over there, or whatever he calls his men, and gets out of his kitchen and his house right now. And Negan's just, perturbed for one thing, and kind of surprised that no one's ever really, yes, so far he's just getting into the savior phase, and no one's really not wanted his help. But this guy, he's something else. So he just calms himself and reaffirms his desire here, and he just smiles and says that you'd be best to take my offer sooner rather than later. After all, what more could you do? And Gordon Ramsay just cuts him off, saying that, did I stutter? And that he wants him and his little band of merry men, along with his little Halloween costume getup that he's got going on there, and takes his little artifact bat, wraps it up in a nice big old ball, and gets out of his kitchen. Because he ain't playing. Yeah, and he really isn't. At this point, Gordon Ramsay has gotten up from his chair and is straight in front of Negan's face, and just tells all of them to get out after insulting the absolute frick out of them. Now, Negan, on one hand, he could just Lucille this guy, because he has insulted him and his men several times, called out his bat, which is very personal to him, especially, this close to when he lost Lucille, and just be done with it. But on another hand, he knows how important it is to save people and what he's trying to build. So he just calms himself down again and just laughs. And at this point, Gordon Ramsay is getting very irritated and just wonders, usually he thought that whenever he insulted someone or, pushed them away, all those years in his life, it has worked. Until this guy. This guy's just straight up taking it. And he's not even fazed. But he could tell that clearly some of those insults have fazed him. But he doesn't really care, because remember, Gordon has no family and no life, so he doesn't want these people who he has no idea who they are infecting what he has left of his life, after he was literally just about to take it. But Negan just smiles, and he tries again. But this time, he makes an appealing case. He says that he can clearly tell that this guy is a cook, and it seems like a really good one. To be alive all this time, to have signs of a life, to have plates on his table, to be sitting at a kitchen table, for crying out loud. And, of course, he doesn't know who Gordon Ramsay is, although I feel that maybe Negan would know who Gordon Ramsay is. But I honestly think that for the sake of both of them meeting, it's best for neither one to know who each other is. So, he can just tell from looking around at the house, the kitchen, the table, that this guy's a cook. And it seems like a really good one. So, he's willing to make this guy an offer. He says that he is still going to let Gordon, well, he doesn't know his name yet unless Gordon told him, he's willing to let this guy still join their group, even though he's refused and insulted them multiple times, and him on a more personal level. But he's willing to look past that on one condition. Gordon Ramsay can cook for them and find a purpose in his life, and all he has to do is just come along and just follow a few very simple rules. And honestly, as long as he cooks for the saviors and his people, he'll leave him alone just like he's doing right now, or as he's been left alone for all this time. And he thinks that this is a really good deal and thinks that Gordon should really take him up on this, because it seemed like he had nothing here. And does he really want to live with that until he eventually starves? Or would he rather make food not only for himself, but help the people in this time of crisis? And Gordon does admit that this guy's right, and actually makes a really good point. But even though he's still very, very much upset that Negan impacted his life, he's willing to, after a moment, accept this offer. And he smiles, saying that, "You just made the right choice there, mate. But I'll only join on one condition. I ain't your little minion or your lackey or your little yes men like your little band of smurfs you got going on back there. I cook for me and everyone else without being told to. And if that's the case, I'm coming right back here and I'm leaving." And Negan says that, sure, for now at least, because he says this to himself, because at some point Negan will want to break him and make him say, "Who are you?" and all that stuff. So for now he just says, okay. And Negan agrees to this plan, and they have a deal. Because, frankly, it took just 5-10 minutes to even get Gordon to even want to. So this was the hardest point for Negan so far for someone to join his group. So they both have a deal. And soon enough, Gordon, Negan, and the Saviors arrive at the sanctuary. And once Gordon gets a good look at it, he just laughs, saying that this is your little base here. This is your home. This is where I'm going to be cooking food at. Talk about your fixer-upper. Negan just looks at Gordon like, the balls on this dude. But he says that the place wasn't exactly in the best shape when he came here either. And they did just make this place their own. Or he did, rather. Not that long ago. But who's to say they can't fortify upon it? And Gordon's like, whatever, mate. Just get me in. Get me certified to your little office. And let's get this thing going. And Gordon means business. And Negan likes that. So they go inside the sanctuary. At the table where the Saviors would have their meetings, Negan stands above them all with Gordon and the Croat and all the other main Savior leaders, Simon, Gavin, Regina, all of them, including the Croat and Gordon, are there for Negan to make an important announcement. Alongside eventually finding more people to save and fortifying upon the sanctuary, he raises his bat and then lowers it to Gordon and introduces him, after he says his name finally, to the rest of the Saviors, and says that this guy, Gordon Ramsay, whatever, is going to be the new cook for the sanctuary. And it seemed like from when he was on his own, he was a really good one. So this will put the Saviors at a really high level of demand, because it will make his men want to work more, because their kitchen wasn't exactly the best. So yeah, this is definitely a huge upgrade. Gordon just looks at him like, kind of like, really, dude? And he's just like smiling to the rest of the men, but says that he ain't someone to be pushed around even by this guy here. Negan, leader, and all this other We Are Negan stuff. Gordon says that Just because he's helping them cook doesn't make him a little yes man who can do anything or, obey them for every single little thing. He's cooking and being here for himself and himself only. And he guesses to cook for all these other wankers in this little sanctuary. He's very perturbed and finds this very amusing. And honestly, has been the most that he's seen since this all started. So that's why he's more or less just going along with it. So Negan, the Croat, and Simon. Negan begins to see faults in the Croat. But Negan and Simon start talking, and Simon affirms that not only is the Croat showing signs of being, off the rails crazy, but this guy, Gordon, has the actual nerve to stand up to Negan. And he thinks that Negan should do something about this. Because, yeah, he might be able to cook for their men, but how long does Negan think that will last before Gordon either leaves or tries to, I don't know, poison his food or hurt the sanctuary even more? Just listen to his mouth. And Negan says it's nothing that he hasn't heard before. And yeah, some of his insults were pretty clever. And he actually likes Gordon for that. And he has a sense of demand and moving ahead of the program. So Gordon gets to stay, unless Simon has a problem with that. After all, having a cook here, and a really good one, could help the morale and boost the confidence of his men, including Simon. Who knows? It might actually make the sanctuary even stronger. So Simon just shuts his mouth and just lets it play out. Meanwhile, in the kitchen itself, or literally what was just, like a den, not even like a full-fledged kitchen, if you guys remember that, of the sanctuary, Gordon is absolutely beside himself and furious what he's looking at. It literally looks like a rat's nest, a crack den. It looks like something that you would see in an abandoned building. And he just can't believe what he is looking at. He's so exasperated and beside himself, he just starts cussing up a storm, calling everybody a bunch of white-felled rats, and just absolutely tearing into the saviors and demanding a new kitchen be built at once. And soon enough, at the kind of behest of Negan, because he would even be surprised by this, Gordon Ramsay starts instructing saviors to build a actual kitchen in that part of where the little den kitchen of the sanctuary was. And yeah, this wasn't exactly something that Negan liked per se, because it wasn't his degree or order, but he does agree that he did tell Gordon Ramsay that he would be in charge of a kitchen. He just didn't say how. So him being in charge of having his men build a kitchen, yeah, it is his men and he's supposed to give the orders. But if it's regarding just the kitchen and nothing else, like military command or, eventual like satellite outpost command, then he doesn't really care. So he just lets Gordon go about his business. And soon enough, an actual kitchen is built in the sanctuary. And yeah, Negan's a little beside himself about it, but he's not really making it too much of a big deal because he's got way too much on his plate right now. Speaking of plate, Simon is kind of angry at this because it wasn't Negan's order. And speaking of order, Gordon Ramsay just holds out a plate of food and shoves it in Simon's face, practically demanding that he eats it, and then maybe that'll shut his little gaping mouth. And yeah, Simon has to admit that the food is really good. So Negan and Simon pretty much just leave Gordon to his business and go about the move up of the sanctuary and going out to find communities to save and more people. So they just pretty much let Gordon do his thing. Negan and the Croat go about the whole kingdom thing, and that pretty much plays out how you would expect. The Croat turns out to kill the girl from the kingdom, and this leads to Negan and Simon finding out, and then Negan shooting the Croat in the ear, missing, and then the Croat, vanishes off and we never see him again. Yeah, just because Gordon Ramsay's here doesn't mean that the Croat's still not gonna, be crazy and do all that stuff. In the governor story, it was way different because the governor and the Croat were a lot alike. But Gordon, he's just a freaking cook. I can't really pair him and the Croat together. Meanwhile, Gavin and Jared and those dudes go to the kingdom, and actually, after that whole Croat and the girl thing, they affirm that they are the ones who will look after the kingdom's supplies for the sanctuary. And Simon goes to the hilltop, and he takes up hold of Gregory and everybody there. And also, Simon and Arot, that whole Oceanside kids nonsense and everything like that, that goes the same too. And Negan meets up with Jadis and all the garbage people and learns a tiny little bit about the CRM, yet they never really learned much. Negan never said that he knew about the CRM, so that's just, you guys get the deal about what happened with those two. And at the sanctuary, the kitchen is looking amazing in the sanctuary, and it honestly looks like a brand new part of their home. And Gordon's got himself a few very good workers. He's got Laura, who was the first savior, who was there with Negan that day that they pulled him to this place in the first place. They have Justin, they have Paula, and Morales. Yes, I'm putting Morales here also. So the four of them, alongside a few maybe unnamed ones, not really important ones, are in charge of not only finishing the buildup of the kitchen, but helping to make the food. Because Gordon can't make all this by himself. He didn't really think that they thought that he could do this all by himself. And he tells everybody that when he was a cook, he would have people on the daily on many forms of kitchens and everything doing the work alongside him. So he charges these four and a few others to finish the buildup and begin making the food. And he'll do what he can, but don't expect everything from him. And Negan is very, very impressed. This guy single-handedly not only built a kitchen, but is actually trying to make a system in the kitchen. And it's really nice. And Negan is so impressed by this, he forgets to be mad that Gordon did all this without his permission. And he lets him go. But Negan does get a little bit angsty whenever Gordon starts insulting him about, going off and saving people, because he honestly is just giving him more people to either maybe turn on Negan with that bat and a whole gun situation and everything like that, and he's just making his kitchen even better. And says that if Negan really wanted to, instead of this whole bat gimmick and saving and all this violent action that they're all going on about, Negan could have become a cook. Negan tries to prove him wrong by making his spaghetti, which we all know that he loved talking about whenever he made it for Carl and then talked about Rick. And now fed him spaghetti. And he makes some, and Gordon just calls him out and says that is the worst spaghetti that he's ever looked at. It literally looks like just a pile of pasta was put in there, and then pure blood was put in to cover the sauce. He would say something akin to roasting the absolute frick out of Negan's spaghetti. And then Gordon would add insult to injury by making his own spaghetti. And once Negan tries this, Uh, you gotta admit, Negan would be very, very jealous because this spaghetti is absolutely delicious. And it honestly gets Negan to just shut his mouth. And yeah, that pretty much just shuts that whole situation down. Eventually, Dwight and Sherry and that whole Tina situation, that goes the exact same way with Negan and the whole wife thing. And then Negan hears from Paula and a few other saviors. Rumors have it going around that while the whole Dwight, Sherry, and Tina situation was going on, some people, they don't know who yet, have been killing, or some of their people have been going missing, like little Timmy and the you know what brigade. That group has gone missing along with several more of their men. And Negan charges Paula and a few of the saviors to station up at a satellite outpost to protect it and make sure that if those people show up there, especially Hilltop or whatever else, that they put them in their place. And now Gordon sees this and that Paula and a few of his workers are going away, and he asks what's going on here. And Negan, he gets a little bit, uppity about this, but he's still in a really good mood. But he's also doesn't like the fact that Gordon Ramsay basically outshined him whenever it came to cooking, insulted him on his cooking, and is now trying to get up in his business. And Gordon's like, he wants to know what's going on right now. And that he has already shown what much of a better cook he is, and he hopes that because of that, Negan hasn't broken his word and is now shafting his workers to do his little line-up square dance to find all of these people that he's supposedly saving, and that he wants his workers back now. Negan starts to get really angry, but he calms himself down, laughs, and says, he's still got plenty of men left, and he would rather that Gordon not talk to him like that again. And with that, Negan just walks away. Simon begins to question Negan on this, saying that at this point, shouldn't they just kill Gordon and be done with it? Because even he cracks a little bit of a laugh that, Gordon outshined him with cooking. But Negan just gets angry, saying that you really act like you could have done any better? The guy's a one-man wrecking machine whenever it comes to the, cooking arts. And that we have much more important things to do about saving people, what this place is about. Let Gordon keep doing his own thing. But if he keeps running his mouth, then I think we'll finally have to put him in his place. And with that, Negan and Simon, they hear from a few other saviors that something has just went terribly wrong. Apparently, a man by the name of Rick Grimes has killed everybody at the satellite outpost that he had just sent his men to, along with a bunch of other band of people, and that supposedly they think that they've killed the real Negan. And they hear a little bit about Alexandria, and now that war is beginning to come into the fold. How will Rick Grimes and their group and everything else in the main story affect even more so with Gordon Ramsay's effect on the kitchen and the cooking and Negan's attitude? Could this lead to Negan killing more people at the lineup? Or could it lead to Gordon siding with Rick and their people just to get Negan out of the way, since the clash of attitudes is beginning to grow strong? Stay tuned for the finale and second parter of What If Gordon Ramsay Was Negan's Cook?